Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoterica and our continuing series, Philosophical Ponderings, where we take a look at 10 games that have a deep philosophical meaning or intent behind them. And today we're taking a look at 2005's Killer7, released on the GameCube and PlayStation 2. It was made by Grasshopper Manufacturer and it came from the mind of Suda51, who is known for making some very crazy games. I chose this one because the storyline behind it is very interesting as an allegory to U.S. relations with the world. The primary storyline is Japan's government has two factions that are competing against one another, and the two dominant entities in this game are the United States government and the Japanese government. And it's interesting because it's from a Japanese developer, but Japan technically is the villain in this game. And you can take a little bit of, hints or cues from World War II, but it really seems to be more contemporary an allegory towards US-China relations, or kind of that push and pull between an Asian country and the US country for what they think the world should look like. Storyline-wise, it's got a really interesting flair to it, where every character is the same character. Now you have 7 different killers, hence the name Killer7, but they are all different personas of one lead character. And basically he's able to mentally transform himself into different characters. It's kind of a complex storyline, and it can be a little bit hard to understand. But if you've ever seen the movie Lost Highway, made by David Lynch, there's a scenario in there in which the main character becomes another person, but it's not in reality, it's actually just in his mind. And that is what we get with Killer7 here, where the main character can morph both mentally and physically into these different characters. And you'll see as we come up here and that camera sees us, we're actually going to transform into a completely different playable character. So it plays on kind of that psyche sense of who we are, who we think we are, who we'd like to become, or who in our mind we are versus how the rest of the world sees us. And it's really just interesting how that goes towards the storyline. It's very complex. There's a lot of lore to it, and it definitely takes a lot of unpacking to understand exactly what Suda51's trying to tell you. From a gameplay perspective, and it is a gaming channel, so we do need to touch on that, it is a really interesting game because it's an on-rails shooter, but you control the motion on the rails. So it kind of almost feels like an evolution of a light gun game. You can't go off the path that's given to you, but you can choose branching pathways, you can go different directions, but you are locked on that rail moving forwards or backwards. It kind of has a feeling with the camera angles of something like Resident Evil, but it's not full 3D movement, but you get a lot of interesting camera angles because you are on that rail the whole time. And now you have this character here who gives you hints in the game, and he's in this kind of bondagey sort of costume, and he comes down from the ceiling, and a lot of things in this game are just never answered. They're left open to interpretation, they're left open to assumptions or how you feel about what they mean. And I do like that from a gameplay storytelling mechanic, because a lot of times what we imagine in our heads is better than what the person writing the story could have given us, because our imaginations are our own, and whatever we create to fill the void is going to be meaningful and poignant for us because it is our own mind and we fill it with things that we like. Versus if you're writing the script for this game and you answer everything, the answers are meaningful for the person who wrote it, but they might not be as meaningful to the person who's viewing it. So I think Killer7 does a really good job of feeding you enough story as the game goes on without giving you every single answer. And I do like that as a storytelling mechanic in games, especially when they have more of a philosophical bend to them or some deep lore. They let you kind of fill in the blanks. What I want to let you do is just listen to a little bit of this, get a little bit more sense of the gameplay, and I'll come back and talk more about Killer7. But I want to just kind of stop talking and let you hear it, see it, get a feel for what the game's all about. But I'll be back in just a second. Every time that evil laugh comes out, especially if I'm playing at night, it definitely catches me off guard and gives me a little apprehension. And I will say that the sound design for this game, as well as the cel shaded art, really bring the world to a point where it feels as real as it can in that stylized nature. It definitely has its own very unique viewpoint and feel to it, which I definitely love, and all those Suda51 games have. But pivoting back to the storyline, a lot of it has to do with Japan trying to sway or influence US elections. They're trying to flip a Senate seat. And it's really topical right now between the 2016 election and the 2020 election coming up, however you feel about it, not talking politics, about foreign powers trying to influence American policy or American politicians. How that happens, whether or not it's happening. They're talking about this storyline in 2005, but it is extremely topical in the last 3 to 4 years about these governments kind of manipulating things behind the scenes. You know, the unseen hand pulling a string of another government's power to try to make them do something that might be advantageous to their own government. It also plays a lot with weapon design. There's a exchange of intercontinental ballistic missiles, and that's, definitely has kind of a Cold War theme bend to it, but something that we still have in our world today, which is arms races and different governments kind of flexing their muscles by using those weapons. So as far as what the story is trying to say, it can be convoluted at times, but it is just kind of a tale as old as time as far as society's been concerned of different governments, different groups trying to sway one another and trying to become the primary or dominant society, calling the shots, pulling the strings, and being that world power. You go all the way back to the Roman Empire, to Greece. These things occurred back then the same way that they do now. And it's just really interesting on how the game kind of portrays that. I really do appreciate what they're doing with it, and I think Suda51's, all of his games, story, have some sort of philosophical meaning underneath the gameplay that is going on. And I think that puts Suda51 in that same auteur category as someone like Hideo Kojima, who just has that crazy stylistic way of telling a story. I want you to listen to the next cutscene, and then we'll come back and close out Killer7, but enjoy this crazy dialogue. I promise you, it's weird. And that is just a little taste of what Killer7 is doing with the storyline and narrative. You get little hints about those struggles between the world's powers, but they really unfold gently, and you kind of have to piece the story together yourself. I do like the fact that the game does have some small puzzle elements to it. It isn't just third-person combat, and it does hew towards that Resident Evil style of puzzle solving, where not sure who would have ever decided to lock a door or hide something behind a candelabra, but that is what they do in this game. So it kind of feels like it might be inspired by those Resident Evil games, especially because it was released by Capcom when they were doing those 5 exclusive games for the GameCube. This is one of the first ones that came out. It definitely does hold up, and it has been remastered. I'm playing the GameCube original because it's what I have, and I wanted to actually play the original version, but it is available on PC and other platforms, upscaled, remastered in 16:9. Although I do like the fact that this game is in 4:3 because it feels like it's designed for it, and it definitely fits. But should you check this game out? 100%. If you like weird storylines, if you like kind of politics in your stories or sort of those struggles between world powers, I 100% recommend picking the game up. If you just like weird games, games that kind of make you think, games that don't tell you everything right off the top, also definitely pick this game up. What other game has a dismembered head holding a ring in a washing machine that you're going to use to solve a puzzle to light a candle later? Trust me, you don't want to miss this game. It is definitely worth the price of admission, however you play. But short of that, that is Killer7, a political thrilling storyline with psychogenic fugue states where your character can become other people at will, but only in front of cameras. It's definitely from the mind of Suda51, but if you like his games, you will love Killer7, and I'm really looking forward to No More Heroes 3 coming out soon. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. Go down below and hit like and subscribe. Definitely helps us out. We'll be back on Friday and Sunday with more videos, and we'll be back on Tuesday with an entry in Philosophical Ponderings. Short of that, thanks so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you have a great week. We'll see you next time, guys. Bye-bye to the severed head.